Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. We're here with Eric Edmeades, our super special guest. He's an entrepreneur, business speaker, adventurer, and founder of WildFit and Business Freedom Academy. So, welcome to the show, Eric. Such a great pleasure to have you with us. So,
I'm glad. I've already had fun. I'm really glad. I'm really happy.
so tell us about what you do. It seems like you do so many different things. And so, what are you up to these days?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest passion is I feel like in my early 20s, I gave myself a series of gifts. And one of those gifts was overcoming my fears of public speaking. Another one of those gifts was achieving a level of financial independence through business ownership, becoming an entrepreneur, that sort of thing. But the biggest gift I gave myself was a rational and solid relationship with food and food psychology. And so I got to a point about 10 years ago where I was sort of tired of my normal, I'd been involved in, I started a mobile computing company and I sold that. And then I bought a special effects company in Northern California and we worked on Avatar and Pirates of the Caribbean and did great stuff. But I got tired of sitting at a desk and really realized my high school dream of becoming a teacher. And so I started at that point teaching my three gifts to the world, and under Business Freedom, where we teach entrepreneurship, but under my real passion and my real baby is WildFit, where we teach food psychology and nutrition. And we've now served over 50,000 people in 130 countries around the world, and it's the thing I'm most proud of in my life, other than my children.
Wow, that's amazing. Can I ask what is it about food psychology that you've discovered and you bring to people?
So in my 20s, I was dealing with a bunch of health problems, and and I'd seen every doctor and specialist. And one day, I just, some friends of mine sat me down. I went to a business seminar, but they talked a little bit about food relative to energy and this kind of stuff. And so for the next 30 days, I experimented with some stuff, and all of a sudden, every symptom that I'd been suffering with for years were gone. Like in 30 days, I'd lost 35 pounds. I no longer required surgery. Like everything changed. And then I sat down with one of my doctors and said, I'm 21 and I look about 15, and I asked my doctor how long he went to medical school, which I got to be the first patient to ask him that question, and like a kid. And then he says 6 years, and I said, well, how much of that 6 years did you spend studying food and nutrition? And he said, shockingly, none. And I was struck by that, and I was struck by the fact that somebody could get a medical degree and not study food. That's like, I wouldn't take my car to a mechanic who hadn't studied oil and gas.
Hmm.
So I discovered, I dug deep into food at that point, and I turned my life around. But then my friends came to me and go, holy crap, you look amazing. How can I do that? And I would give them the rules, but they wouldn't follow them. As we know, I mean, the average person that goes on a diet gains 3 pounds every time they go on a diet. The diet industry doesn't work. And that's because they don't address the psychology of it. And so I started doing a deep dive into the way the psychology of it works. And when you do that, you remove the need for willpower. If somebody wants to eat ice cream, it doesn't matter what diet you put them on, as long as they still want to eat it, they're going to eat it. They're going to have a really good day and celebrate and eat it, or they're going to have a bad day and celebrate and eat it, depending on how they're brought up. And so if you can change that psychology, then you remove the need for willpower and you allow people to make proper lifestyle change instead of trying to truck them on a diet.
Okay, sign me up. Do you coach people on this? I mean, how do people
You
find
know,
out?
I originally coached people. I was living in Turks and Caicos at the time, and so I couldn't really. I did it online with Google Hangouts, and very quickly I couldn't keep up with the demand. So then I recorded the program into a video training program. And so now we have 400 coaches around the world, and we have a video training program so people can do it with a coach or without a coach or in a class. We have a big class coming up on January 24th, because by January 24th, everybody realizes that their New Year's resolutions didn't stick again. And now we can show them that they don't need to make them stick, that we can help them stick.
So, what is your success rate with people? Do you know?
There's a bunch of different ways to measure success rates. If you look at the success rate of any video training program, most video training programs are fully consumed by less than 5% of the people who buy them.
Hmm.
So people buy the video training program, and less than 5% of the people will complete that. And we have an 85% completion rate of a 90-day video training program. That in itself is industry changing. And then if you poll the people after they've done the program, about 85% of our clients will tell them that it was life altering for them and worked. And the crazy thing is that the other 15% will tell you that it helped improve their relationship with food and they definitely got benefit from it, but it maybe didn't do everything for them that they wanted. That's about the ratio that we have. What really is shocking to me is I originally started it for my business clients as a how to improve your cognition and energy and not fall asleep at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It now happens every single day that people write to me with where their doctors have removed them from their diabetic medication, their hypertension medication, their antidepressants. When you solve somebody's relationship with food, you improve every aspect of their life.
So how do you do it? I mean, what is the secret sauce?
There's a bunch. It's a very complicated thing because there are many different things, but I'm going to give you one of the most powerful principles. Your emotions are heavily outdated. Your emotions evolved for life on the savannah. And so now we are being convoluted and bombarded by advertising and social media and manipulative campaigns and what have you. And so our emotions are very confused. And so one of the challenges is that emotions are designed to either pull you towards something or push you away from something. And so, in nature, I found honey in this tree. I ate that. I felt good about it. I want to remember where that tree is. Emotions are also designed as a trigger for memory. If you have an experience with no emotion, you won't remember it. But if you have an experience with an intense positive or negative emotion, you're more likely to remember it, to the point that too much emotion might even cause sort of a post-traumatic stress problem. So now if you think about that, emotions are so very important. Well, the vast majority of the food that people in America eat, they eat to address an emotional problem. They don't eat it for nutrition. In fact, most of the food we eat is so devoid of nutrition these days that it's a wonder half of us are alive.
Right.
And so one of the ways to fix it is here's a very practical example. People will often address a negative emotion with a certain type of food. So if you poll an audience, I'll be in front of 5,000 people and I'll say, how can you cure loneliness? I'll tell you right now, the answer is chocolate. Everybody will tell you chocolate can cure that feeling of emptiness and loneliness and lack of connection and love. So what that means is that you've got a person sitting in their house feeling a sense of loneliness, and they turn to chocolate. And in that moment, chocolate's going to distract them. They're using it as a drug, frankly, and it's going to distract them. But what they don't understand is that that chocolate is so full of calories and sugar that their body sees it initially as a good thing, because energy was so scarce for our ancestors. The body goes, holy crap, and rewards you with a flood of dopamine. So in that moment, you actually do solve the problem. But here's the real difficulty. Your neurology learns, your psychology learns that the path to the high calorie treat that you just got is through your sadness and depression. And so it will trigger sadness and depression in order for you to get that reward. So practical example, I had my whole family around for the holidays last year, and one by one, they all left to go to their different places. And I was left, and my daughter went to go be with her mom, and I'm now on my own in my house when I'd had, no kidding, 7 women and girls in the house. It had been the oxytocin, estrogen house of fun. And then they're all gone. And now I'm alone, and it's a Sunday. And I'm feeling a little depressed, and I'm like, oh, there's this smoothie I make, and it's almond butter and dates and vanilla powder and a little cinnamon. And I suddenly get this feeling, and I see what's going on is my nervous system is learning that, hold on a second, I can distract myself. I suddenly say, no, we do not reward negative emotions with high calorie garbage like that. Even if it's fairly healthy stuff, we don't reward the nervous system like that. And I made a deal with myself. I can only make that smoothie if I have an epic day, if I have a great day. And I'm like, gosh, that's never going to happen. But then I went out and I thought, what would I do on a normally good day? I'd go build sandcastles. I love on the beach, and I love building. So I'm building the sandcastle and I'm hating it. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. But then the tide comes in and it threatens the castle on this side, and I'm building a little bit more. And then my friends come over and they want to tour the castle, and they think it's amazing because it's about 12 feet by 10 feet. And so it's a pretty, and then they invite me for lunch, and we have the most epic day. We laugh for 3 hours under the sun. I walk back in my door and go, now I can have the smoothie, because I'm rewarding my system for having had a great day. And my body will learn in the future, as a result of this, if you want that smoothie, the only way to get there is through having a great day. When people learn these things, they then get to unlearn the stuff that they learned. A coach has a hockey team. The hockey team loses. The kids are all crying in the back or depressed and sad. What does he do? He takes them for pizza, Cokes, and ice cream. They very soon learn that losing the game and being tearful about it is the path to pizza, Cokes, and ice cream. And they wonder why at 45 years old, when they're having a bad day at work, they want to go home and order a pizza, get some Cokes, and have some ice cream.
Eric, I just really love the way you work on helping people change their thinking. And one of the stories that really stuck with me was the one that I mentioned earlier, when you were in England and you decided that you were going to conquer road rage. Can you tell that story again for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, road rage is, everybody thinks that soccer, they call it football there, but everybody thinks that soccer is like the national sport of Britain. It's not, it's road rage. They're better at it than anybody. It's incredible. And since I wanted to become like a local, I got into the game as well. And I bought myself a car with a very big engine so I could play the game well. And I would go out and I would have these road rage experiences, and people would cut me off and do something wrong, and I would want to tell them how wrong they were, and like everybody else, get in on the game. And then there was one day where I had a jarring experience where I pulled up at a red light and a guy pulled up beside me, and he was driving one of these unmarked commercial vans. In Britain, they call this guy White Van Man. It's a commercial van with no phone number, so they drive with complete discourtesy. They're rude as anything because you can never call them. And the guy's looking out the window at me, and he's staring at me with that bullying attitude. And I know what he wants me to do. He wants me to say to him, he wants me to look at him so he can say to me, "What are you looking at?" And then like I'm supposed to cower and I'm driving my beautiful little Mazda Miata, my first ever convertible that I bought myself. And he's looking at me, and I'm not going to look at him. I look over, my body does it because I'm feeling stared at. And he, true to form, he says, "What are you looking at?" And I don't know what happened. But I have a bit of a smart mouth sometimes. And my mouth said, "The ugliest bugger I've seen all day." And I fully expected at this point that he was going to get out of the car and beat the hell out of me. And we're at a red light with traffic. There's no crossing at this point. But instead, he has a mass. Honestly, this guy was Neanderthal. I think his mother defrosted him from an ice like an ice field or something. But he pulled his head back into the car and talks to the other guy, and then he sticks his head back out and he goes, "My brother says he thinks your daddy probably bought you that car." And I don't know what happened, but I responded. I go, "I bet your brother is your daddy." And it's all funny, right? But then the light turned green and I was gone, and I'm terrified and I'm adrenalized. And sure, it's kind of funny or whatever, but the truth is, I got to my next meeting and I was so adrenalized, I was so afraid, I was so negative that it was all over me. And I realized that this game is dangerous. It's like it's unpleasant, and it affects the fear and the anger and all this stuff. And so I fixed it like this. I went and got myself a pair of football cards. Now, the rules of football are different than hockey and American football, soccer that is. And the way they do it, I think more people in America learn this now, but back then nobody knew. But you have a yellow card for a minor infraction, which is just like a warning, but a red card and you get kicked out of the game. And so I decided I'd keep these cards under the visor, and when people cut me off in traffic, I would give them the appropriate card. And so, I thought I'd gamify the whole thing. I'm now the traffic referee. Is the deal. And so I put the thing under my visor, and I'm driving along, and a guy does a U-turn in front of me. Like, he does a U-turn around me, in front of me, and there's not enough there's not enough space on the other side because of the stop traffic, and ends up stopping cross car in front of me. I have to lock up the brakes to stop. It's clearly a red card offense, right? I mean, it must be. So I unbuckle my seatbelt so I can stand up above the roof panel. And I show him the red card, and he busts out laughing like he's belly laughing. And then I look at all the cars that are beside us who saw the whole thing happen, and they're laughing their asses off. I think they must think they're on candid camera or something because it's so fun. And then the guy in the car does something unique, something I'd never seen before, no matter which finger gestures or no matter which arm gestures I'd ever shown anybody in the past. He apologized. And I realized that what happened that day is that I improved my quality of life, his quality of life, everybody else who watched quality of life. I interrupted the pattern. And what I mean by that is I'm a very big fan of Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. And he said that, basically, paraphrasing, that there's a moment between stimulus and response. And in that moment is where you carve out your freedom as a human being. And when you allow rage to take you over, you've missed that moment. And so what I'm always looking to do with myself, with my coaching clients, is to help them identify what I call Frankl moments. The moment where you can inject your consciousness in before your instinct brain kicks over. And so those cards were a mechanism for slowing everything down and creating a Frankl moment so I would never cross into the rage and never enter the road rage. And it changed my life.
Well, and this show is about innovation and entrepreneurs. I think this is a really innovative approach to managing your emotions. and something every entrepreneur needs, because you could walk into a meeting with an investor and they could just rip you to pieces, and what's your reaction, right? Or somebody, I
Yeah.
mean, every entrepreneur has somebody tell them that what they're doing is terrible and they should just go back to bed or whatever. And so you need these kind of protections, this kind of system to help
Yeah.
yourself. But during the video, I want to bring that back up. And anybody who hasn't gone to Eric Edmeades' website and seen his video, it's on ericedmeades.com. That's, or Eric, ERIC, Edmeades, EDMEADES.com. Download this video. It's really powerful stuff. I had a question for me. You had a terrible experience, and it would have crushed a normal person. And I don't want to say too much because you say it so much better on the video. But you were able to reframe these experiences. And one of the things you said is you figure out why it happened, looking at back at it from a different place, you figure out why it happened, and then you reframe everything. But what if you can't figure out why it happened?
Do you know, if you pray to God, the universe, whatever your belief system is, for strength, the universe doesn't simply magic you strength. It gives you something that will help you build strength. If you ask for perseverance, the universe doesn't suddenly make you magically persevere through stuff. It gives you things to persevere through so that you can build perseverance. So when you're looking for the why is whatever it is you had to build to get through that. The why is what, the why is whatever you had to build to get through that situation. That thing is a gift. It just doesn't feel like a gift in the moment. And I think that one way that I tend to look at this is that when we play video games, we cherish the hardest levels. We cherish them. We come up to them and we cherish them. In life, for some reason, we do a U-turn, or many of us do U-turns when we come to the hardest levels. And that's not really a functional way to do stuff, in my opinion. I think that we are living in the safest, easiest, best times in the history of humanity. I'm 51 years old. If I was born in 1900, by the time I got to 20, I would have gone through the Spanish flu and World War I. By the time I was into my early 30s, I'd be dealing with the Great Depression. And then in my early 40s, I'd be fighting in World War II. By the time I was 56 years old, I'd be facing the Cuban Missile Crisis. If you were born in the first half of the century, it was a tough game. If you were born after 1950, it's been the easiest time in the history of the world to be alive. And yet more people are drug abusing, more people are drug addicted, more people are committing suicide than ever before. And that's because the easier life gets, the harder it is to live. And if we can learn to cherish that, if we can learn to understand that it is the adversity that we are facing and it is the challenges that we face, if we can face them like we would a video game, oh, look, it's the big boss. And instead of getting angry when we fail, we go, oh my God, what can I learn and how do I do it better the next time? If we took that video game philosophy and brought it into our lives, I don't know, we might see some change. And that's, I don't know which of the circumstances you're talking about, but I have had some moments where if I had not managed my state in that moment, it would have been a completely different outcome. And it would have created a completely different mental scar potentially as well.
Right. Well,
Wow.
I think that Facebook is trying to change the world into a big video game with its metaverse. See how that works out. But did
Yeah,
you have a question?
and I have been a big Viktor Frankl fan for a long time. I've read his book several times, and it's so nice to hear somebody bringing back some of his, his thoughts. And one of the things that was always important to me is that he titles the book Man's Search for Meaning, but really you create meaning. You don't find it, you decide what the meaning is going to be for your life, and then you pursue it. And so I always found a lot of inspiration for that and try to make conscious decisions about what I pursue and and kind of not just wait for it to come down to the universe, from the universe to me. So I really appreciate that. So you also have a program for entrepreneurs too. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
You know, I observed something when I decided to start my first business, and I didn't start it out of any sense of bravery. I was working for a guy who, had a very tenuous relationship with honesty and ethics, and I ended up having to leave that job despite it being incredibly high paying and what have you. And then he refused to pay me the money he owed me, and I'm stuck in another country and I've got no money. And I relocated to the UK for this job, and now he messed me about, and I quit, and I have no money, and I'm stuck in, and I've got a pregnant wife on the way, a dog, a car. I mean, I'm basically in quite a lot of trouble. And so I really thought about what to do, and I legally couldn't get a job because my work permit came with my employment, so I couldn't even go get a job. So I was really left with no choice but to start a business. But as I did that, I wanted to analyze what starting a business meant. And what I found is that for the majority of people, starting a business means creating themselves a job. That's what it really means. It means self-employment. And I would make this definition that if you have a job that requires you to be there, then you're self-employed. If you have a business that can operate completely standalone, irrespective of your geographic location or attention to the business, then you have an asset and you're a genuine business owner. And so I started my business with the intention of being a business owner and not being self-employed. Now, like everybody else, I quit one job, started the business. I now had 14 jobs. But over the next few years, I systematically resigned from each of those jobs until one day I resigned from the CEO position and didn't have to go to work anymore. I had about 35 employees. We were selling mobile computing solutions to logistics companies and retailers in the UK, and I was out. And then as a result of that, I was able to sell the business because you see, it's very hard to sell a business where you're integral to the business, because even if you do sell it, you end up just becoming an employee for the people who bought it. In my case, I sold the business on a Monday and I left the country on a Tuesday. It was that simple. And I mean it. And so what I really dedicated myself to when I decided to get into teaching was to teach the principles of proper entrepreneurship. That how do you build a business that doesn't take over your life? The bigger your business gets, the more freedom financially and temporally you should be experiencing. But for the vast majority of business owners, it doesn't work that way. 4 out of 5, 80% of business owners will go out of business before they even get to 5 years. And of the other 20% that survive, most of them will survive through unbelievable hard work and sacrifice, letting their health slide, not spending enough time with their families. It's basically a form of self-imposed, administrative slavery of some kind. And so there's a distinction, and the distinction is build a business that's going to give you the freedom that you went into business for. And so ultimately that's what we aim to teach people.
That sounds great. And where can people find out more about this program?
Businessfreedom.com.
Okay. So we have to wrap up this segment, Eric. It's been absolutely phenomenal having you on the show. I hope you'll stay with us for the rest of the hour. And so we'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this.